to embark on an imaginary trip through a unique little borough's past and its present. The Roselle Park Historical Society has collected these treasures for you, the next generation. Roselle Park is a very special place to live, work, and play, and it's very different from its parents, Elizabethtown and Connecticut farms. The borough of Roselle Park was incorporated on March 22, 1901, and will celebrate its centennial in the year 2001. The borough seal depicts the categories we'll highlight: the Revolutionary War, radio, railroads, and the electric light bulb. If you recognize this weather-beaten old road sign, you know that it's located on the corner of Michigan and the Boulevard in Kenilworth. From it, we discover that the borough of Roselle Park is geographically located in the center of Union County, New Jersey, east of Westfield and Springfield, south of Route 22, and west of Elizabeth. Roselle Park's west entrance from Cranford or Garden State Parkway's exit 137 on Westfield Avenue, which is also Route 28. The water tower in the center stands on Romarovsky Brothers property, formerly Radio Corp of America, site of Marconi's wireless plant. The earliest reference to this locality is a 27-parcel plantation purchased by Samuel Williams in 1721 from Thomas Lyons. His son Joseph is depicted here. Samuel originally came from Connecticut and divided his property among 5 sons and 3 daughters. It became known as Williams Farms. Part of the Williams homestead is believed to have been located on the site of this business office. During the 1800s, this large home was moved to accommodate the straightening of Highway 28. In June 1780, British troops pursued General George Washington up Galloping Hill from Elizabethtown to battles at Connecticut Farms and Springfield. The son of General William Crane was bayoneted to death near Colonial Road and Galloping Hill. This monument was erected on the corner of Colonial Road in 1913 by the Daughters of the American Revolution as a permanent reminder of this skirmish and the colonial patriot who sacrificed his life for freedom. On it, George Washington was quoted. The New Jersey militia flew to arms universally and acted with a spirit equal to anything I have seen in the war. During the Revolution, the Continental Field Hospital operated under the shelter of a large tree, which became known as the Hospital Oak, and remained standing at Galloping Hill Road until 1912. Looking east from Colonial Road towards Galloping Hill, the dying remains of the Hospital Oak can still be seen in this old photo. On left is General Crane's home, and it still stands on the Elizabeth side. During the 18th and 19th centuries, several taverns and inns fed and bedded travelers on the Old York Road between Elizabethtown and Philadelphia. Dobbin's Hotel, which later became the Sportsman's Tavern and then Good Time Charlie's, has a very colorful history. Now known as Yesterday's, it is believed by its patrons and owners to be haunted. Years ago, employees of nearby Carrigation Rug Company cashed their paychecks at the sidewalk window because they were not permitted to frequent the bar on payday. The Seton home on Seton Avenue was one of Roselle Park's oldest, long-standing homesteads, built by John Seton between 1713 and 1720 on the west end of town. It was relatively untouched by modernization until it was leveled during the 1980s. The area that is now Roselle Park was once known as North Roselle, according to this 1860 map of District 25, although it was never governmentally associated with its namesake to the south. All of Roselle Park was then part of Union Township, originally Connecticut Farms. The turning point came in March of 1901, when due to lack of sewer facilities and neglect of roads, schools, fire, police, and health services, Roselle Park chose to secede from Union Township. Silas Drake, a real estate entrepreneur prior to 1901, advertised lots for $150, only 30 minutes from New York City, bragging that several hundred railroad trains passed through at all hours daily. Some residents of the 90s believe they still do. Although he promoted the area as Roselle, the brochure offers property for sale in the Lorraine section, Roselle Park. Why Lorraine? Why, that was his wife's name. Chestnut Street, which divides the borough into east and west, is viewed as this dapper Dan traveled the route from 5 Points south towards the Lehigh Valley Railroad. Perhaps he was about to visit someone special in one of these substantial homes which line Chestnut Street near Clay. This is an aerial view of downtown Chestnut Street during the 1950s. Many people enter Roselle Park from 5 Points. This entry to town is via Chestnut Street near Sumner Avenue. The Elizabeth and Somerville Railroad Company first stopped here on New Year's Day, 1839. Ever since, railroads have dissected and defined the commuting community of Roselle Park. This Lehigh Valley train scene was taken during the notorious blizzard of 1888. The Black Diamond Express is seen on the left, passing the long-gone Lehigh Railroad Station. This dangerous street-level Lehigh Valley crossing was at the corner of Chestnut and Lincoln. Today, this crossing is elevated. The Rahway Valley Railroad carried passengers from Roselle Park to Kenilworth around the turn of the century and extended later to Summit. Other hot destinations for business or pleasure were Uppsala College, Miller's Grove, Petrillo's Grove, Farcher's Grove, and Baltusrol Golf Club. After 1918, Rahway Valley provided freight services only and was essential for munitions transport from Picatinny Arsenal and Hercules powder plants during World War I. The 1920s movie, The Switchman's Daughter, was filmed along these tracks, which was nicknamed The Streak of Rust. These Central Railroad employees proudly posed at the Roselle Park station. Here is the same building in 1957. It was demolished during the mid-70s. Looking in the same direction, this stereoscopic slide has captured the moment in the late 1800s that Higgins Grain and Feed store was being relocated. building was recycled from Westfield Avenue to around the corner onto Chestnut Street. Let's zoom in on the moving of that building, which was the place to buy your agricultural implements, seeds, and fertilizers. Frequently, when people moved, they took the whole business with them. This was more common than tearing down a perfectly usable building as is done today. Notice the roof towers on the far left. Well, they're still there. In this 1975 photo, the corner landmark was occupied by Colonial Savings Bank. National State Bank is on the right. Sullivan Chevrolet is in the foreground. The Queen Anne-style building shown here in 1909 has been a drugstore, a grocery store, and a bank. In this postcard, it's Horning's Drugstore. Note the tall trees, the peaked roofs, and the narrow dirt road looking north on Chestnut Street. Those peaked roofs are still behind and above the present business facades. Looking north, this is downtown Chestnut Street as it was in the 1970s. Looking southwest at the previous location during 1975, Jerry's department store is on the west side of the street. Next to that was a State Farm insurance office. Mulford Station. Serving both sides of the railroad tracks, this whistle stop was located at the foot of Union Road, behind where Castle Ford is now. It served the east end of town, while Aldean Station served the west. Westbound on Westfield Avenue, downtown, resembles a scene from a classic movie. Street lights had 3 round lamps, vintage vehicles parked in the middle of the street. Note the movie theater and the electric poles. Later, Haps and Caps, located on this block, was a popular teenage hangout. Most of these buildings still stand, but have been altered. New Park Cinema still draws nightly theatergoers, and the stores are quite active. Lighting has changed, no overhead wires are visible. So have automobiles, which no longer park in the middle of the road. The Aldean Railroad Station at the west end of Westfield Avenue. This is now the parking lot of Sun Tavern, which had been Good Time Charlie's, and before that, Dunn's Garage. An archaeological dig sponsored by the Roselle Park Historical Society in 1975 attracted archaeologists from 3 states. On the day before the parking lot was to be paved for Dunn's Garage restaurant, the group was given the opportunity to probe with the assistance of a backhoe. Though not your traditional delicate excavation, relics of the Aldean Railroad Station were unearthed, including books which recorded by hand each train's arrival and departure time at the station. Also found was a Civil War uniform button. Transportation in the borough evolved here as it did everywhere. This horse and milk wagon was a familiar sight. Milk was delivered for 12 cents a quart, and no one worried about cholesterol. These men are taking a break while installing the Westfield Avenue trolley tracks. Here's the result. In 1919, this happy homecoming was captured at Westfield and Filbert. Of course, we also had buses. Fare to Union or Elizabeth was 5 cents. About the time of this photograph, an armed, masked highwayman made his living robbing those buses on the Kenilworth route, but was caught in the act by plainclothes policemen. In 1882, Roselle Park became the home of the first electrically lighted store in the world. Thomas Alva Edison himself introduced electric power to Roselle Park. was the generating station known as the Village Plant at Locust and First in Roselle. Charles Stone, the store owner, courageously permitted Thomas Edison to wire his butcher shop when everyone else was afraid. Stone's store was given free electrical current for 3 years for allowing Edison's experiment. One day the bulb burned out. Mr. Stone bravely removed the bulb and sent his clerk scurrying with it to the Edison laboratory only blocks away for a replacement. Meanwhile, Stone held his hand over the socket to prevent the electricity from escaping. The post office was inside Mr. Stone's store then. Now it's on the corner of Grant and Chestnut. As we look eastward towards Elizabeth, we see the milk wagon making a delivery at Charlie Stone's. This is how that block looked in 1992. Grandview and other shops have replaced earlier shops and homes. Tuthill's hardware store was on Chestnut near Charles Street. The 1903 curved dash Oldsmobile in the foreground was made famous by the popular song, "Come with me, Lucille, in my merry Oldsmobile." Chestnut Hill Market is near that location now. In 1875, Livingston School became the first elementary through high school building for area students. It was on West Colfax Avenue, about 100 feet from Chestnut Street, where Willis Place is now. Before that, it was known as District School Number 25. Another early schoolhouse was located on McGee Avenue and was later divided into 2 private homes. Sherman School was built in 1912 on East Grant Avenue. There are also Robert Gordon and Aldean elementary schools, the middle school, and Roselle Park High School within the borough. In 1838, the first church in Roselle Park was Cornerstone Mission, which met in a house at Locust and Clay. The pastor was Mrs. Florence Eli. In 1871, the Methodist Church was formed, shown here, at Chestnut and Grant. In 1903, it became the Methodist Episcopal Church. In 1940, the name was changed to Community Methodist Church of Roselle Park. This picture was taken in April 1976, when the corner park was just a small patch of grass. The first Catholic parish was established in 1907, when Italian-American families desired to worship in their own language. Much of the west end of the borough was settled by Italian immigrants, and there was at times fierce rivalry between them and the Protestants who dominated the East End. Old-timers still reminisce that at one time a line was drawn down the middle of town, and confrontations were sparked by Catholics or Protestants who violated the boundaries. Church of Assumption today is well attended by members of all nationalities, even from the east end of town. The street it is on was renamed for Father Shiego, a well-known pastor for many years. The home of the Roselle Ramblers Sports Club. Later, this was to become the site of the borough's first fire station. decades later, the fire department and Borough Hall looked like this. Just a few years ago, they looked like this. The Borough Hall Fire and Police Department, built in 1915, was demolished 77 years later, in 1992. This is the Fatute Hose Company on Laurel Avenue. The original Borough Hall chambers had a stained glass skylight. The skylight was rescued, restored, and installed in the council chambers in the new Borough Hall by the Historical Society. The present municipal building and police department on Westfield Avenue near Walnut Street was formerly the Love One Another Church of the Nazarene. An active sport and social life was had during the early decades, as evidenced by this Park Athletic Club event. Music was always very important. Drums, music, and marching continue to be fun in the center of town on parade days. Roselle Park High School Band, marching by Athenian Arms in a 1975 parade. This small mansion was the notable Tomasulo family estate, which later was torn down to construct the Sunrise Village, an apartment complex. The large Tomasulo family was well known in the community and in the Catholic Church. Another famous inventor was Guglielmo Marconi, the father of wireless radio transmission. His equipment manufactured here was crucial to the Navy's communications during World War I. The Marconi Company became the Radio Corporation of America in 1919. In 1921, radio station WDY began broadcasting from this studio in the Aldean section. It was the first licensed radio station in New Jersey and the second in the whole United States. Celebrities like Eddie Cantor, famous singer and actor for over 60 years, first performed live from Roselle Park. Eddie Cantor sent this telegram to congratulate Roselle Park on its 50th anniversary in 1951 and acknowledged his radio debut here at the Marconi Wireless plant. This police arm patch depicting a transmitting radio tower was worn during the 1970s to commemorate Roselle Park's radio station and Guglielmo Marconi. A historical site plaque recognizing the contribution of the Marconi Wireless was affixed to the building, which is now occupied by a material recycling factory. In the 1950s, this is the Park Theater, and local residents flocked to it. With a new name and a modern marquee, it now contains multiple theaters. The theater's interior was restored to its earliest splendor. This is a close-up of the detailed ceiling decoration. What is a great contemporary American town without a McDonald's? Roselle Park has over a dozen popular restaurants. Our latest meeting place is the Gazebo and Park at East Grant and Chestnut Street. It's a popular place for newlyweds to pose for wedding portraits. Our visit ends as the sun sets. Our commuting residents still head back to Roselle Park as their ancestors did over 100 years ago. Thank you for letting me share with you a glimpse into the past and present days of our little community. So we find that parts of our history have been influenced by George Washington, Thomas Edison, and Guglielmo Marconi. We witness Roselle Park history every day whenever we take a train, turn on a light, or buy a product shipped by rail. We even participate in Revolutionary War ideals when we speak against taxation and oppression. Everything is history, and the history of tomorrow is today. History is power. Use it well, my friends.